instead of coming to a rational acknowledgement that it's in our interest to have a negotiated settlement, instead we keep going down the road of potential escalation. What is the mindset on the European side?
So from my point of view, the Ukrainian people doesn't matter. Ukrainians are brought to the butcher on the table of Western interests. And the interest is to unbalancing and to weakening Russia. And this is the strategy of the United States. And now we have a situation that for President Trump, it seems to be not so helpful to go on with this war, but he is blocked by the deep state of the United States. And these people in the Pentagon, in the CIA, and in the administration of the United States, and also the majority in the Republican Party is cooperating with European leaders. And the political survival of European leaders depends on this war, as the political survival of Mr. Zelensky does. And Mr. Zelensky is surrounded by Galician right-wingers and fascists. And the survival of those people depends on the war, so they won't stop. This is also a fight of the political elites in Ukraine and in the European Union and in the UK as well against their own people.
And I mean, just help us understand why that would be. Why would anyone, even if there are this so-called deep state, why would they want to take action that would be counterproductive to their own people? What is the bigger agenda here?
So the agenda is to go on in weakening Russia. That's the main goal of this policy. And we had a press conference of the German government some days ago, and the speaker said, we want peace as well, but we want peace against Russia. And this is a declaration of war. When I was in Karelia in June this year, so I saw that the Russian Federation is constructing new missile positions in the forests over there. That means the Russian Federation is preparing for a great war with Western Europe, with the European Union and the UK. So Mr. Merz, Mr. Macron, and Keir Starmer know that they cannot go into this war without the help of the United States. And this is why they want to keep the United States, Washington, in this war against Russia. This is the agenda. So it's a self-destructing agenda.
But is this, let's just concede for the moment that that's the case. If it were so, these people aren't stupid. They're probably highly educated, very smart. But you can want that outcome all day long. And let's just say, just divorce from morality. Yes, you want to have this so that you can submit, cause the Russian Federation to submit to your desire so that you can have hegemony and all that stuff. But when you look at the balance of power and the balance of forces on each side, and I'm even including Western NATO in this at the moment, you can see that there is virtually no way that you can get that done. You can reverse that at an acceptable cost that would allow you at the end state, even of this dynamic, to where you would have anything except a smoldering ruin on your side. I don't see any side of even the hypothetical outcome that would leave these so-called deep staters in a position that's better than where they are now. How do you see it?
Well, I have to say, from the position of a clear-thinking man, you would stop this war as soon as possible. And Lavrov said recently, the only way to stop this war is to meet the Russian demands. That means a neutral Ukraine out of NATO, a government in Kiev which is more neutral or pro-Russian, but not a fascist government, and the 4 oblasts which came to the Russian Federation after the referenda in fall 2022 will stay Russian. And the European leaders don't want to meet these demands. And now we arrived at the 19th sanction package of the EU. And all the first 18 sanction packages were completely senseless. They backfired like a boomerang. And to go on doing the same thing and expecting different results, this is, from my point of view, the definition of completely craziness and madness. And it is part of the decline of the West that many countries in NATO are run by a crazy and degenerated elite. And that's the background. They cannot think in a clear way. They are destroying their own countries for their own survival.
Well, that's kind of the way it looked, but I was hoping there would be another sentence on there, like a however. But I want to keep going down this path. You brought up this issue of the deep state. There was an interesting exchange just a few days ago in British television, to where very short time former Prime Minister Liz Truss was asked about this whole issue of the deep state, and she made a very interesting comment here, basically saying, "Hey, we the so-called elite are actually victims of the deep state." Watch this.
Well, let's talk about the state, or more specifically, the deep states. You say the Bank of England sabotaged you, the Treasury, the civil service. Tell our viewers and listeners about this deep state and the people who really are controlling our governments.
I think it's important for people to understand, because people think the Prime Minister is all powerful or the Chancellor is all powerful and they can go into government and they can just pull the levers and things will happen. But actually, the government is controlled by the permanent bureaucracy, by the civil service. It's them who hire and fire the people that work in the government. They control the budgets of each government department. Okay. They make the decisions about how policies are implemented. So even if a policy has been signed off by a minister, it's a civil servant who says whether it's legal. It's a civil servant who implements it. It's a civil servant who signs off the budget for it. And that gives those people a lot of power.
So it turns out that, the Liz Trusses, the Keir Starmers of the world are just pawns in the hands of these unelected bureaucrats. What do you say to that?
Well, I think Liz Truss in this point, only in this point, is right. Because the financial industry, especially in the United States, and the military-industrial complex is making a lot of money by this war. And the state bonds are held by financial investors in the shadow banking system, in the unregulated shadow banking system. And those financial investors can bring under pressure every state who don't want to go on with this war. And they are making a lot of money by, for example, selling out the bonds. And this was very successful 30 years ago against the British pound. And it will work again. And that Mr. Merz want to continue with this war against Russia is, from his point of view, completely logical. So
right, but see, I would argue that, and the way I view it, and tell me if you disagree with this too, is that Truss is trying to, and many of the other leaders are, they're trying to blame the bureaucracy inside the government. But the stuff you're talking about there, like the defense industrial base, the military industrial complex, the banking system, et cetera, those aren't bureaucracy. Those are outside of the government, putting a lot of pressure on. And it seems to me, and again, tell me if you disagree with this, but when you have the Liz Truss, the Donald Trump, maybe even, and certainly Joe Biden before this, and Macron, Chancellor Merz, they seem to be working with these people a lot more than being just mere pawns of them. How do you see it?
Yes. So let's have a glimpse on the German administration right here in Berlin. These bosses of departments in the Foreign Office, departments in the financial ministry, they all wrote PowerPoint presentations and papers and files for their ministers for years. And now they would have to concede that these PowerPoint presentations they wrote were completely shit. And this is something they don't want to do. So they will get fired because they made mistakes. They underestimated the Russian military and the Russian economic power, because nobody of these guys were ever in Russia. They know nothing, but they are feeling as great analysts. And let's have a glimpse to the European Union, the bureaucracy in Brussels. This is a anti-democratic warmonger bureaucracy. It's a kind of despotism against the member states. And this despotism and this bureaucracy will getting stronger and stronger by go on the war, because the war makes it possible to weaken the member states. Suddenly, Ms. von der Leyen is overtaking budget rights. So the EU doesn't have, the EU Commission doesn't have budget rights. This is in the duty of the member states, but the war makes it possible. So the central bureaucracy in Brussels is getting stronger and stronger by continuing with this war. And this is a war against the rights and the sovereignty of the member states as well.
Now that's on display right now with in Hungary with Viktor Orban, who is not playing along with that band, and he's pushing back significantly. And he was just here in Washington, D.C. just a few days ago, really doing his best to try and bring Trump over to his side. How do you see that battle within the European Union about member states succumbing to that pressure you're talking about from Ursula von der Leyen, or the Viktor Orbans and Robert Fico's trying to push from the outside?
Yes, those countries in Southeast Europe and in the European Union are depending on Russian oil and gas. And this is the only way to make a more Russian-friendly, for example, position. And this is an inner discussion. And on the other hand, those countries are getting a lot of money, billions of the EU, transfer billions. At the moment, the European Commission in Brussels try to give out Eurobonds, to make it impossible that those small member states could block the transfer to money into Ukraine anymore. So what was impossible to help in the financial crisis and the state financial crisis a decade ago for the poor people of Greece, now it is possible for the warmongers and the financial industrial complex and the military industrial complex. And you see right here the balance of power. I think possibly the EU Commission and the German government, who wants that, can manage to give out euro bonds to bring in new debts. But if the Ukraine will come into the European Union, every financial transfer to the member states will be stopped and all the money will come to Ukraine, more than 180 billions of euros. And that means the European Union will break apart because the member states that are receiving money right now won't receive any money after the implementation of Ukraine. And that would be the end of the European Union. Possibly, this is in the interest of the United States to create a row of weak vassal states without any power against the United States. And then they can increase the tribute European countries have to pay, because the single countries are so weak, they cannot stand to the United States. That's the point.
Now, we had a British economist on the show last week that is sounding alarm bells that there could be some significant economic downturn coming, no matter what anybody in London wants, in the coming year, in 2026. A lot of bells sounding. It's certainly not the only one here, but anything that happens in UK is not going to be limited to that. It could also expand definitely to Germany, who's also weak. How do you see the potential for an economic, I won't go so far as to say collapse, at least not right away, but a downturn that could have negative implications on all the possibilities of even giving these bonds away, or at least of making them good?
Great Britain is facing a bailout by the International Monetary Fund. This is something I expect. I cannot evaluate the detailed situation in France, and the state budget in Germany is overloaded with debts, but compared to Great Britain and France, it's relatively stable. But the German economy is in full decline. We are losing jobs more and more, thousands of jobs. And the investment into the military sector will bring a short economic fire, not more. It's not a good investment on the long run. So I think the current government of Germany can only buy time to bring themselves after the next elections. And after the next elections, we could face a discussion if the alternative for Germany, AfD, must be part of a new coalition. We will see.
When is the new election, or the next election?
In 3 years. In 3 years. So we have to check if this government will survive 3 more years. So it's difficult to explain right now, because the situation is difficult and it's different in every country. But it is clear it is a suicide strategy against their own countries. And the problem is the whole political class, all parties of the ruling party cartel, all over Europe, in Germany as well, normally had to declare they made a lot of mistakes and we have to step back, but they don't want to do that. So it's just a question of personal survival of the political elite. And
what impact is that? No, we'll just keep it at Germany since that's obviously your home country there. What impact is that having on the general population, the not elite people? Are they, number one, are they even aware of what the elite are doing? And number two, to the extent that they are, what is their reaction to wanting to go down this militaristic and debt-ridden path?
Two different questions. Firstly, the average German is getting poorer and poorer because the prices are increasing, especially for food and for energy. Secondly, the average German doesn't show any protest against the government. The population, the majority of the Germans, is sleeping into the abyss. They don't want to do anything. And it is difficult to explain. It depends on the corona measures some years ago. Depends on the liberalization of the labor market. It depends on digitalization, and it depends on propaganda. So in the last point, the war in Ukraine and the Ukraine itself are very difficult topics to understand. You have to know something about the prehistory of the conflict, because this conflict started with the coup on the Maidan and not in February 2022. And the majority of Germans don't understand that. Two sides of this. The first side is the propaganda spread by the mainstream media every day. And the other side is most Germans don't want to understand that. But they fear that if the check will come of this war, they have to pay this check, that their savings will be gone. And nobody wants to face this sad reality in Germany.
And did they, to the extent that you can characterize it, does the general German population, do they believe some of these claims that the Russians are coming for y'all? If they get rid of Ukraine, they're definitely coming to Berlin next. Do they believe that?
Yes, it's completely crazy, but many Germans think Mr. Putin will be knocking at their door the day after tomorrow. And they don't understand that this is completely crazy, because Russia has everything Russia needs in its own country. They have energy, they have minerals, they have food, they have everything. And they are not interested in conquering Western European states who are completely in economic trouble. They have enough trouble in their own country with connectivity, for example, and producing energy and producing cars and everything. So they don't want Western Europe. And this is something Putin declared in his speech 4 days ago at the day of unification of Russia. He told the public, the Russian public, we are not interested in European culture and economy. We are living right here in our own culture. We are stronger related to Asia than to Western Europe. And we don't want to have Western European individualism. Our state is built on families, children, and the community of the people. And this is a completely different approach. We don't see we don't only see a fight of economies or a fight at the front line. This is a cultural conflict as well. And Russia will win this conflict.
Point.
That's the point. And so most Germans think Putin will be knocking at their doors the day after tomorrow. But this is completely crazy. It is a way of double think, as the British author George Orwell described it in his dystopia 1984, this double think. Different parts of reality or of thinking don't compare to each other, but it works in the minds of the people because their minds are destroyed. They cannot think by their own. They are completely outer-directed by propaganda.
Okay, and speaking of that propaganda, before I let you go here, one other issue that's kind of in the news right now that I definitely wanted to get your view on, and is directly related to what you just said here, and that's the issue of the Nord Stream pipeline blowing up, because there's information out this morning that the Nord Stream investigation in Berlin is splintering Europe over Ukraine. According to the article here in the Wall Street Journal today, for 3 years, a crack team of detectives gathered each workday morning around a whiteboard at the German Federal Police headquarters in Potsdam near Berlin. Now their investigation into who was behind the greatest act of sabotage in modern history, the bombing of the Nord Stream pipelines, which directly had a negative impact on German economic output, is threatening to splinter the support for Ukraine, the country they hold responsible. What is going on with this?
Well, I think the Wall Street Journal is wrong in its covering. The destruction of the Nord Stream pipeline is not a topic in German public. It is not, it's not a topic. And the investigations are not really investigations of the state attorneys. The state attorney, from my point of view, is trying to cover up the whole thing.
And why would they want to, I mean, just on this surface of it, sorry to interrupt you, but why would the Germans want to hush this up when they were the ones that were harmed probably more than any other country?
This is a war of the United States against Germany. And the German public and the majority of German people are afraid of the results of that. That means we had to leave NATO because the biggest enemy of the German interests are the leading state of the NATO. And that means we have to leave the NATO and we have to stop our support for Ukraine completely. But believe me, nobody in the German political class is encouraged to do that. They are
so they are genuinely okay with subordinating their national interests to Washington.
Yes, yes. German interests are sacrificed for aligning with the United States and their interests, because our elites are aligning with the elites in the United States. This is a kind of fluid elite, an international, a transatlantic elite. Those people are not interested in the welfare of German people. And well, the proof is right here in Berlin. We had never so many homeless people and so many beggars in the subway stations as we now have after this coalition of Olaf Scholz and with this coalition of Friedrich Merz. So those people are not interested in the welfare of their own country. They are interested in their own welfare and the welfare of their buddies in the United States.
And I guess in the last few minutes we have, if you can just, I guess to the extent that you can, kind of, how did we get to this point? Because ordinarily, conceptually anyway, any country is supposed to primarily look out for their own national interest, and then they'll cooperate with others as it benefits them. And to the extent that it doesn't benefit them or harm them, they'll distance or even stop. And yet that doesn't seem to be happening. How did we get to the point to where the German elite prioritize somebody else's benefit to the expense of their own?
I think, and I can show you many examples. The members of those German elites are dependent of their friends of the United States. They managed their careers in cooperation with transatlantic organizations like German Marshall Fund. They got grants in the United States, invitations for seminars and discussion rounds. They have probably real estate in the United States, in Florida. And They are member of the Young German Leaders, the Atlantic Bridge, and many other organizations. And during the Obama era, advisors of the United States government came to Germany and explained them how to manage the public discourse by financing non-government organizations who are not non-government, which are government organized non-government organizations. And those organizations are providing jobs for academics. And by leading their own country in the wrong direction, they can work for their own welfare and for their own career. And then you have this round door effect from the non-government organizations to the think tanks, from the think tanks into the government and the ministries, and from the ministries to the think tanks and the universities. And this is a process of job sharing and going around in this circle of jobs and managing their own careers. And they don't want to leave this bubble. They would destroy their careers. They couldn't make money anymore. As a dissident in Germany, you will face a lot of problems, like I do. Because it's not easy to stand up to the majority. And this is a transatlantically degenerated elite. This is a bought elite and a corrupted elite. Yeah.
Well, we can see the evidence of it all over the place, and you've just touched on a little bit of it here. And we're grateful, and we affirm you and your dissident operations, and encourage you to continue going on, and look forward to sharing your views here on our channel as well, because we need a lot more of that, both in Germany, the United States, and across the board, so that the people actually get a chance to have their say and to find out when they're being lied to by their own governments or these NGOs or any of these other transnational entities that are out for themselves at the expense of us. And we're grateful to what you do. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me here.
And we appreciate you guys too. Be sure and like and subscribe if you haven't. Also, to let you know, we will be back here in about 1 hour from now with Andrei Martyanov, and we're going to be looking at what's going on the Russia-Ukraine war from a little bit different perspective. Always a treat to get to hear Andrei. He's got some unique perspectives and sources you're not going to get anywhere else, folks, because we are unintimidated and uncompromised to bring you the truth on this issue here within Germany, within the United States, or anywhere in the Western world, because you deserve to know the truth, and we're going to give it to you. Thanks, folks. Look forward to seeing you this afternoon on the Daniel Davis Deep Dive.